So maybe we'll start by just doing some introductions first, and then I have a few comments I want to make before we ask some questions and kind of open up our dialogue. So do we want to go around and do some introductions? And maybe since Kathy is on the top right-hand side of my screen, Kathy with a C, she can start.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see everyone. My name is Catherine Simunovic. I'm in Timmins, Ontario. And okay, what am I here for? Oh yeah, so I sit on three boards, three boards of directors currently. The Canadian Mental Health Association Ontario Division, the Ontario Association of Children's Aid Societies, and locally here in Timmins, the Northeastern Ontario Family and Children's Services Board, Integrated Child Welfare, Child and Youth Mental Health, which is my former employer for 33 years. And so, yeah, I spend my retirement years, about 7 years I've been retired, did some consulting initially, and I'm just enjoying my governance work and volunteering in my community here. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kathy. Joel, how about you? Welcome.
Sure. Hi there. Joel McCartney with the Cochrane Temiskaming Resource Center here in Timmins, so executive director of this agency, and we are a organization that supports people with developmental disability across the region.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Avanthi, how about you? How are you doing today?
I'm good, and I'm not sure why I'm actually here. So David's going to have to explain that to me. I think I saw the email when I was in South Africa, and I just got back a couple of days ago, so I haven't had a chance to actually look at any material. But when David says, Avanthi, I'd like you to attend a meeting, I obey.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
So I used to be on the York Children's Aid Society board and on the OACAS board. So I'm no longer with, volunteering with Children's Aid. So I am retired, but I do serve on 4 kind of governance boards. So I'm on the hospital board at South Lake Regional Health Center. I'm on the Ontario Hospital Association board. I'm with it's called the Departmental Audit Committee of Correctional Services Canada, which is a whole different role and experience of learning about correctional services. And I sit on the Institute of Corporate Directors, the GTA chapter executive. And I think that's it.
Well, and you're retired, you said? It doesn't sound like it.
I know. Coming back from the holidays, I've suddenly realized I'm catching up with emails on 4 different organizations going, I'm working.
Wonderful. Thank you. Sherwin, how are you doing?
Good. I'm Sherwin Knight. I'm from the Great White North, as well as Catherine. I'm located in New Liskeard, Ontario. And I sit on the Northeastern Ontario Family and Children's Services Board. I was used to sit on the OACAS board as well, but I had to give that up. I'm retired after 26 years from Community Living Temiskaming South, which is also an organization that's supports individuals, adults with developmental disabilities. And they found out one day I was there, so that's why I was no longer employed with them. So it took them 26 years to figure it out. But
Wonderful. Thank you. And welcome, Hugh. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, David?
Good, good. We're just going around doing a few introductions. So if you want to introduce yourself, that would be wonderful.
Sure. Hugh Drouin. I'm also retired. Retired in 2019. I was the Commissioner of Social Services for the region of Durham. And since then, I've been traveling, looking after grandchildren, and I'm on one board, the Board of Excellence Canada. And that's it right now. Other than that, I'm traveling and having a good time.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Bruce, how are you doing?
I'm great. Hi, everybody. I've been, privileged to be part of the group that helped to develop and shape the curriculum that we're going to be discussing and the process. And I did so through my lived experience, started in child welfare as a kid, really, and worked my way around, was the executive director of the Children's Aid Society of Toronto going back 30 plus years and ago. And in that role, worked directly with the board, obviously, and supporting the board in various ways. Moved from there into the government and was the director of child welfare for a while. So have an eye to governance from a government policy perspective. And then after that, Community Living Toronto, amazing organization, for several years as the CEO. And finally as Covenant House Toronto executive director. So a varied experience. And I now sit on some not-for-profit boards, most recently Pine River Institute.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. And David.
Yes, David.
The other David.
So I'm David Rivard, and I'm one of, like Bruce and Hugh as well, one of the founders of the Good Governance for Good Causes. So we've been working on this program for 4 or 5 years now, and I retired 5 years ago from the Children's Aid Society of Toronto in the role as CEO, and worked in a variety of other settings over a span of about 44 years. And so Avanthi, I wanted you to sit in on this call because I respect you as a governor, and I know your experience. And as you mentioned, you're on a number of other boards now, and really want your input on what's been developed and what we're hoping to do with this program. So happy that everyone was able to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. And yes, welcome, Avanthi. I'm so glad that you could make it. I thought you might have been still in South Africa, so it's great to have you here. I just wanted to echo a couple of things before we jump into a few questions that we love to have a conversation about today. This program wouldn't have happened without the leadership and the wisdom of people like David and Bruce and Hugh and some other folks that were all part of thinking through what would build board capacity, what could really support the organization moving forward with board capacity building. So their leadership, their wisdom has really helped to co-create what this program is all about. And so it's incredibly important to recognize the founders that were part of this thinking. And as David said, it was over about 4 years that we started to process, research, develop, and moving towards accreditation. And secondly, the other wonderful piece of this conversation today are the folks that are joining us from Timmins, because Joel and Catherine and Sherwin all were part of the first cohort that went through the program. And we are so pleased that they have agreed to have this conversation today with us to share some of their insights, some of their learnings as we move forward. And so truly looking forward to that. And because we all know boards, are really the backbone of an organization. It's what our human service delivery models are set upon. We have a board of directors, and then we have staff that operationalize the mandate. But without a strong governance board that has capacity and diversity, and it represents not only the organization but the community, it would be a challenge. And so it's so critical that we work together to figure out strategies and ways to continue to build capacity on our boards and build diversity on our boards. It's key. So I really want to thank you all for this conversation today. And we are doing this because we want to continue to raise awareness of what we're doing, what we want to do, and how we want to continue to improve it. So we are at a starting point to operationalize this program. It's not the end point. This is a journey. We will be continually learning from people that are taking the program to keep refining, to keep improving, to meet the needs of the organizations in the community and the funders as well. So along with that, I thought I'd ask a few questions first of the folks that took the program, and then we'll probably branch into some broader questions. But I wanted to go around and ask the 3 folks on here that were part of our cohort, and you have to know that they committed a lot of time to this. They committed to 10 modules over the course of, I think, approximately 5 months, and each module was at least 3 hours. So there's a lot of commitment put in to this work. So my first question, reflecting upon the Good Governance for Good Causes, or as we'll probably refer to as GGGC, curriculum content and learning experience as a whole were your top 2 most significant takeaways? So you committed yourself, you attended these meetings. So what would you say would be your top 2 significant takeaways? Who would like to go first? Catherine,
I could
okay,
kick it off.
Sherwin, please, that'd be wonderful.
Sherwin?
Okay, sorry, folks. Didn't mean to step in, Catherine and Joel.
No, go.
I'll keep mine short, and then
No.
you guys you can step in. Actually, there were so many takeaways, really, but I would say the equity piece was one of the biggest takeaways for me. Equity, diversity, and inclusion. It's so important today in today's times, and as a leader, as we lead a board and an organization, we really have to keep that in mind, because it is such a small, when you break it down, it's a small thing, but it affects an awful lot of people. Like we here in the North, we've always sort of thought that we were shielded, that we didn't get a lot of the stuff that the cities got, but it's slowly creeping north, and we've got to start looking at that and realizing it, and start changing our policies and our visions of how we're going to support new nationalities in our new people in our communities, and are we really, is the board really a reflection of the community? So that was a big takeaway for me. I am working, I was working on that quite a bit with the Ontario Association of Children's Aid Societies, but it's certainly spilled over into NeoFAPS as well. The other thing that is the cooperation and collaboration with other boards is a big thing. Again, that's something NeoFAPS has been doing for quite a while. It's not really anything new to us, but there were some new ways of doing it that were presented in the different modules. So it was a good thing. And so those are my top 2 takeaways. And I just want to also mention, while I have the time and the floor, is that I want to thank David and his group for coming up with this course and presenting it to us, and for allowing us to be the guinea pigs. Oh no, I want to be the pilot project. Sorry, again, thank you very much, and it's an excellent course, and you're looking at people that the 3 of us from NeoFAPS are very appreciative of it, and are really, I'll speak for myself on this, but I'm sure the others are the same, is that we'll support you in any way that we can moving forward with this, because for me, it's an excellent thing. It's, back in the 17 and 18, there was the push on through OACAS for not good governance, but roles and responsibilities for the makeup of boards. It was a collaboration between the ministry and OACAS, and it talked about bakers, lawyers, accountants, and what you needed on a board. But this, that was helpful, but that's now it isn't as important as some of the things that are discussed in this course in the different modules. And again, I'll just say it again, the biggest one to me was the equity. And with that, I'll zip up and
Thank you so much, Sherwin. That's wonderful. Thank you. Kathy or Joel, who would like to go next?
I can take the floor. Yeah, I would certainly agree with Sherwin on the issue of equity, but I framed it under the diversity piece. And sort of the aha moment for me in the course was the notion of diversity of thought. You know, I think if the reflect on the boards that I've been on and our efforts around EDI and sometimes EDIA, EDIAA, it's really been around equity and diversity, largely representing, you know, race, creed, skin color, ethnic group, all those kinds of things. But this moment in the course around diversity of thought really impacted me, because I think that really is fundamental. So that matrix of looking at diversity, similar to what you were talking about, Sherwin, around, you know, check, do you have the lawyer, do you have the accountant and whatnot? You know, how do we get at this diversity of thought? And I think part of it is from the diversity of people and from the communities we represent. And I was also reflecting when I heard about that on DeBono's 6 thinking hats that we did as a senior management team at Neofax years ago. And it was really about, you know, welcoming and inviting different ways that people think. You know, some people tend to be the sunshine thinkers and some tend to be the cloudy day thinkers, but you need all of them at the table to really give any conversation, you know, a rich and a robust opportunity to sort of, you know, look at various options and whatnot, perhaps in a situation where you're making a decision. So diversity of thought was big for me. I would also talk about the notion of collaboration. And I don't know, David, what this course, how this course might feel to, you know, 10 members from the same board. We were 3 boards, am I right, Joel and Sherwin? So we were Living Space, Neofax, and Cochrane-Temiskaming. So we were 3 different boards. And in that then brought—
4 actually, Catherine. The hospital.
Oh, we were 4 boards? Oh, the hospital too, that's right. So you had the hospital, yeah, so Cochrane-Temiskaming, Neofax, and Living Space, the low barrier residents here in town. And so, you know, that diversity of thought was clearly there. And I just think of the breakouts into the small groups and the large group conversations. I don't know, you know, we are 3 representing the Neofax board, and I think we had 3 others, Cleo, Tiffany, and Gail, I think, from the Neofax board. So we were 6 of the group. But what was really impactful for me was hearing from other board members on your board, Joel, certainly Kate Durst and her board, from her agency, I should say, her organization. So, you know, here nor there, David, I don't know if you've had a cohort that is representative of just one board. I did do some governance training just with CMHAs right across our province. During COVID, we had a Zoom 2-hour every Wednesday night or something. And it was very specific to CMHAs. So, you know, it was mostly information giving as opposed to sort of collaboration and group work. So, you know, it's kind of an interesting concept when you bring in other not-for-profit boards. And I'm kind of sneak in a third around reflection. And I think that, you know, giving the homework, or at least the opportunity to read through the curriculum ahead of time, I often find at board meetings, and largely Zoom ones, you know, you're coming into the meeting and that's it. You just sort of come in, you sit down, you do the board meeting. There's not a lot of opportunity for that sort of chit chat, and any reflection you might have is kind of quietly when you turn your microphone off or your camera off and think for a minute. But the course allowed for that, a lot of reflection. And that has been one of my goals, to bring that into all of my governance roles with my 3 boards right now. And to be really comfortable with, you know, I don't have a comment right now. I'm still thinking this through, which was something that I never did before, because, you know, agenda's packed. We got to get through it. We've got big decisions to make, a budget to pass. Let's go. So, you know, I'm bringing that into those environments and those settings, whether in person or online. And the course really spoke to that for me. Allowing us to really take the time to be reflective and thoughtful about responses and, you know, how we want to advance, you know, the particular module that we were working on.
Wonderful.
So
Thank you
those
so
would be
much. Thank you. Thank you. Joel.
Yeah, sure. So certainly resonates with me what both Sherwin and Catherine said. I could have said that as well. There's so many pieces that I took away. the ones that stand out in terms of a new kind of point here is the relationship piece and the values piece. That really kind of sits in my mind in terms of bringing things to the board, in terms of building the relationships and the connections with the board members before we get into, or just not having it only rest on business and the you know, the clinical factual piece of those activities. So, you know, building those connections, feeling a stronger kind of in tuneness with the board members, building that board as a team, you know, that balances that diversity, but sees, you know, that kind of entity of the board as a unit. And I think there was I recall a video that one of the sessions played that kind of focused on a bit of this piece. It was obviously a well-known, it's not coming to me in terms of remembering this gentleman, but he's written many books. We played the video on, he was connecting to people. He was, you know, he talked about intentionality. He talked about, you know, making sure you touch base with, you know, members on and I think he was talking about employees in terms of the video, but having that personal connection with people to really make it meaningful. And from there, you start getting people's attention. You start getting their interest and their ear, and communication strengthens from there. And I don't know if any of you, David, if you recall that video, but this gentleman I'm talking about, maybe Catherine Sherwin, if anyone can remember him. It was he's been in this kind of business for many years, and I got to get his book still, the one that was advertised. So that piece, relationships, make sure you're attending to them, building them, and with intentionality. And the values piece that, I mean, that for me to Zed, is this always pretty well speaking in terms of what you do through your values? Are your values intertwined with, even when we're talking about budget, even when we're talking about some of the drier business matters of the meeting, or you know, those board events?
We might have lost Joel for a second. Did anybody else?
Yeah, yeah.
I think he's gone. He's back. He's
Okay.
back.
Sorry, this has gone down 3 times. Just reconnected. So just making sure conscious of the values is what you're doing, speaking to your values, and how is that being amplified and recognized within board activities and as board members? Are we touching on that piece? Because I think that really accelerates and makes more meaningful whatever you're talking about with the board, whether it's challenges or successes. And just in terms of what Catherine, just quickly, sorry, what Catherine was alluding to a bit in what she said, the experience of the this course, this program, and how it was designed in terms of bringing in conversation, a lot of those breakout groups where a lot of these quite challenging themes at time, you know, we tackled in that open discussion, very respectful, but we had there was I think a real psychological safety there to put things on the table, and the leadership in terms of the presenters, how they built that in and helped everyone feel comfortable and connected and willing, I think, okay with sharing some good detail that enriched everyone's learning. So that format was really powerful. And I should add, sorry, I am on the Neofax board as well. I didn't say that in the original hello. So with Sherwin and Catherine.
Thank you so much, Joel. I'm wondering, before we ask the next question, if any of our founders would like to reflect on what you just heard or ask a question that came out of that. Anything that you want to add, Hugh or David or Bruce?
Well, I would just say to Joel, your discussion on the impact of the human dimension with boards and the importance of building a relationship almost as number one. or as the foundation of a board is really important. And I'm glad you got that out of it, because when we first sat down to create this program, we wanted to create a program that had a very strong human dimension in it, like the term massively human. You know, we wanted that to be in there. And so I'm glad that you experienced it. That I think that warms my heart to hear that. That's great.
Exactly. Thank you. Bruce or David?
I just really wanted to thank the folks from Timmins for really being in this whole pilot phase, because I think you've given so much of your time that really will help this program develop even further. And, you know, you all have a lot of experience on a variety of boards. So I'm just interested in your comments and how we can improve this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I just echo all of that. And, you know, as we set out to develop this curriculum, so many of us had been on the receiving end of training and development in these particular areas, and we wanted to be different. I really love that you've identified the diversity issue, and not only of thought, but of content and representation, and also the process that we undertook. So there was a group of us, not only those of us that had lived experience of being on boards or working with boards, but also adult educators in the group. So the combination has been actually a learning experience for all of us as well. So wonderful takeaways. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And that kind of leads in, and we've sort of partially maybe answered this next question I was going to ask you, but maybe we can reflect on it for a minute from the folks that took the program. How did this program touch your heart, mind, and spirit? Because you probably haven't maybe experienced this type of conversation before in this type of form. So how did it touch your heart, mind, and spirit, Kathy?
Well, that was an interesting question that you asked in this, you know, in this set of questions for today, David. But I also know that the program was framed, you know, around that. I've got my binder beside me, and it's interesting because I think as volunteers, I'm moved to volunteer because I feel like I'm doing something of value, and it moves my heart and my soul to do it. And I think that was reflective of my, you know, 33-year career in child welfare and child and youth mental health. It wasn't just a job as a social worker. It was a calling. It was what I felt sort of led to do. And so even in my retirement years, I find myself doing the same thing. So to be a volunteer, you know, either hands-on helping at a senior's home, hands-on at a blood clinic, or whatever you might be doing, it's got to be heart. It's got to fit with your heart, and you have to be driven by your heart. However, when you get to this board work, which is called governance, it kind of gets left out of the mix sometimes, right? You're kind of semi-professionals of governance, if you will, but you're not paid. So you really are a volunteer. So it really made me think about that. But again, I reflect on my boards, right? Mental health, child and youth mental health, child welfare, Camp Quality was a camp for kids with cancer, the Hospital Foundation. They've all been, again, sort of in that same vein of making sure that my heart is as engaged as my brain is in whatever it is that I'm doing. So I have to be serving. And maybe that was your video, Joel, that you were talking about. I think it was Robert Greenleaf's servant leadership one that we did under that title. And I was such a proponent of, I think that's what you and I talked about, David, when we met years ago in your office. And, you know, bringing that to my work at whatever we were called at the time, Child and Family Services, I don't remember. I never positioned it within the context of my work, my volunteer work as a governor or as a board member. So another aha moment for me, I continue to be a servant leader because I think for most of us that understand the concept of servant leadership, it's how we live our life. It's not just what we bring to work or, you know, to the boardroom table. So, but I had never positioned it that way. I'd never positioned myself as a leader. But collectively as a board, we are leading the organization within the context of its governance. So there's a strong connection between heart, mind, and soul, you know, spirit with this course that I don't think people would normally attribute to their work, as a volunteer not-for-profit board member, and not-for-profit has to be in there, obviously.
Thank you. Thank you. So well expressed, Catherine. Joe or Sherwin, how about you guys chipping in?
I'll let Joel go ahead this time, so he won't be last.
Always a
again.
gentleman.
Thanks, Sherwin. Thanks, Sherwin. So I think just to add, it was really a holistic experience that, you know, touched upon those three elements. To me, it answered in many ways, or gave the response to the why am I doing this? Why, you know, I playing this role professionally? Is it just a profession, or does it speak to, you know, my heart, the important pieces that I live by? It really challenged one to reflect on that, and this course really brought you through a bit of a journey around that, and helping me anyway get in tune with those pieces of reflection. Is it a logical thing? Is it something that feels right in terms of a broader, you know, place in life for me? And that servant piece that Catherine, finally was the word I was looking for a bit, in terms of, you know, that is the role here, service to this cause in the nonprofit sector, and that is the real meaning. That is the get up out of bed and why I'm energized today, why I'm doing things. And so those, you know, kind of speaking in a general broader term around that, but it touched on those three elements from that perspective.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Joel. Sherwin.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I agree with the comments of Catherine and Joel. And, you know, when I first started the first couple of modules, I you know, had a little bit of a challenge to bring in the mind, the body, and the spirit. But then as I got thinking about it, I realized that that's the way I've been. It just not in those terms. You know, like Catherine said, you know, calling or whatever you want to call it. I was, you know, I joined the Child Welfare Board in Temiskaming years and years ago because I wanted to help the younger children that didn't really have a voice for themselves, and I wanted to be able to try and make their lives better. And one of the ways I could do that is by sitting on a board and expressing my opinions. So, you know, it took me a while to realize, but I think most of my decisions that I've been making over the last few years, quite a few years, have always had that base to them, but I just didn't realize it with the 3-letter term. So, you know, and I think it's essential in a lot of the decisions that we make, because we've got to be mindful of what our decision is going to, the impact it could have on something. We've got to have a passion for it, which is the spirit, and so. And the heart, again, that goes along just pretty well close with the spirit, is that, you know, my heart is in this because it's something that I want to do. And so, you know, the three letters there are important in the decisions that we make. And you know, I think that moving forward, now that it's opened up to me what I've been doing, and just in different terms, it'll now be, you know, I'll be more conscious of it and be more more aware of, well, why did I make that decision? And then I'll think back, well, in my mind, it was a right decision or whatever. So yeah, that's my wrap on that.
Thank you for your expressions of that. That's wonderful. Thank you. Any comments or reflections by the other folks on our call that helped design this?
I
Avanthi,
just wanted to
yeah.
say how affirming it is to hear you all reflect in the way that you have, because at the outset, as we started to develop the curriculum, we were clear in our own minds that you needed, as an effective board, to lead with your heart, mind, and spirit, to instill that throughout the curriculum, and to also emphasize how much of a culture setter and leader you all are, and how you work with one another, the diversity of thought, but also the relationship that you have with the CEO. All of those matters came back in our mind to that critical issue. And it's great to hear that you actually have benefited in a significant way from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Anything else from Hugh or David? Do you want to add?
Oh, I just echo what was said. I mean, this is great. It is affirming for sure, like Bruce said.
And I'd love to hear what Avanthi thinks. She's just hearing this for the first time. She's sitting there observing and listening. And I would just love to hear any reflections you might have for a moment.
I think I'm a little blown away because the last time I was involved with the Children's Aid on Governance was when we were looking at basics, like in governance, and David Rivard was on that committee with me, where the ministry had funded us some money to kind of develop some governance capacity, they called it. And all we were looking at was policies and procedures. And now I'm listening, and that's not a long time ago, and I'm listening to you folks in child welfare and how you've come along with governance in a whole different way. I'm really, really curious about this program. Like, it doesn't sound like, and here's the, guide to good governance, which the OHA developed, which is all about policies and procedures, but it's beyond that. It's about ethics, it's about behavior, it's about leadership, it's about going to your core values as to why you're volunteering to make this organization's purpose work for your community. So it's almost like, and I think, Catherine, you talked about it, and I think all of you did, talked about, you can be a governor and you can do that due diligence stuff we're supposed to do. But what I'm hearing in this conversation is this program forces governors to interact in a very different purpose than your due diligence, and here's your financials, and what does the audit committee say, and where's the risk management framework. So it's, I think, bringing leadership into leadership, which has never happened. If there's an oxymoron, that is it at a board of directors. So I probably have time to reflect after this conversation, and would love to have a further conversation with whomever. I may not have time to go into the program itself, but just to look at, maybe even the table of contents and just see how it's delivered. I am listening to the delivery piece of it as well. And it sounds like it's really moved it into a different place. And having taken the courses at Rotman's, both in the not-for-profit program that they have at Rotman's, which is, I think it's a 3-day program, and then the director education program that David Rivard forced me to take, where I got my designation. But, my purpose has been to take that, was to bring that not-for-profit thinking into corporate world. And I'm listening to you folks thinking, wow, that's, I haven't seen a course that really deals with those ethics things and relationship thing, the way you're talking about it. I mean, I've been in a course on board culture, but not the way you're talking about it. So I'm curious to look at this program.
Wonderful. Thank you for those comments. That's wonderful. A couple other questions I have, and then we can reflect on our conversation. But one is, How did you personally experience the content and its impact on your leadership approach? So you got involved, you dedicated yourself to it. And how did it show up through your leadership, do you think, and moving forward, not only in your current position, but you're all on various boards, you're committed to board work, to representing the community as well as the organization. So any comments that you have about that, your personal reflections on the impact on your leadership?
Well, I think I shared earlier about the notion of reflection and of just taking pause in meetings that otherwise are jam-packed with, stuff that has to get done. So I've been very intentional about that as much as I can be. The other thing that really impacted me was this whole notion of, and Joel, you spoke about it earlier around a takeaway around the issue of trust in the relationship of people on the board. And it's an interesting phenomenon from my perspective when I sort of began to reflect on this piece, that we come together around a board table every couple of months, maybe once a month with some of our standing committees and whatnot. And we are entrusted to lead at the governance level an organization and to have, a professional working knowledge with our executive director or CEO. We're asked to pass budgets that in some organizations are millions and millions of dollars. And we have to trust people that are bringing the information to our meetings, sending it to us, a week early, 3-4 days early. We read through it. Okay, but, that's fine. But I mean, most of us within our relationships of people, partners or, good friends, neighbors, we've grown over the years and years of spending time with them. We don't get that luxury on a board. And in many cases, the little bit of camaraderie that you got before COVID, there was more of it. Since COVID, there's very little of it because of the virtual essence of meetings and that continuation of that. So we're expected to trust and we're expected to make these big decisions. And so a course like this, I think, really drills down on that, and it really weeds out those people that really are not in it with their heart, mind, and soul. Gone are the days of being a token board member, where I'm here because I need volunteer hours to get into my program, or, someone said it was a good idea to be a volunteer. So this is, I don't want to do any heavy work. So sitting around a table for a couple hours once a month is fine for me. But, I just don't understand the notion of sort of wasting your time if you're not in it to win it, if you will. And winning it is a loose term in my mind right now. Just, I want to be here because I want to make a difference. And it sounds a little colloquial, but I think that if it is coming from the heart, then you put the effort into it. And I make the effort to, I know some of the board members from my agency that I worked at, and, so I had that luxury, that privilege. But it was important to me to get face to face with people, to build relationships so that I can say, I do have trust in that person who is presenting the audit committee report with all the money attached to it, right? So I think that on a go forward basis with my boards, it's really about that reflection, and it's really about making the conscious, intentional effort to be collaborative, to be relational, and to really get to know the people that I share, the boardroom table with.
Fantastic.
That's what I
Thank
would
you.
say.
Thank you. So well said. Sherwin or Joel, do you want to add to that? Any comments?
Sure. I'd like to right on, Catherine. That really what she said speaks to my sense as well. It really, the bottom line for me, made me reflect more deeply on my role and my connection as ED with the board, and how to support the board at so many levels. Like, it gave me a rich, more comprehensive sense of things in this whole enterprise of connecting with the board, supporting, and how we interact, and building that board up, building my role, or feeling more confident and strengthening my role in that experience, the ED and board experience, and helping me in just my board member role with Neofax in feeling more confident and able to understand that broad spectrum piece. There's so much going on here. There's so much to integrate. And how is that, back to one of my previous comments, I'm keeping a steady keel here by keeping on track with my values. Is this speaking to my values? Is this connected to the agencies, the organizations? Are we aligned? And well, so far this has been feeling like a good fit. That is so helpful in getting a sense of where you are, a sense of confidence, a sense of kind of balance, if you will, because of in the board's roles and in an ED's role, it's challenge after challenge. You're being swayed here, you're being swayed there with all the different complexities that you face and have to respond to. But this helped me think more deeply, helped me manage those situations a lot more confidently.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sherwin, do you want to add a comment?
Yeah, just a very short one. As you know, I'm very distinct and to the point. Ha ha ha. But no, again, what it's done for me is that it's given me more tools in my tool belt to work with, so that I become a more effective governor, and which in turn works to be a betterment for the organization. And again, there's a lot of stuff that was presented that's like the other Catherine and Joel have said, that make you think. You're looking at listening to others and hearing their thoughts, and so that you're not always going into a meeting with your thoughts already made up and on what you're going to do or how you're going to do it. And so again, it gives me a lot to think about and a lot of tools, even though I may think that I am a good governor because I've got many years of experience, but it just proved to me that I can be a better governor by having some more tools in the tool belt. So that's
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. Any reflections by the other folks on the call?
I was amused by your comment, Avanthi, about the training that was provided to OACAS and child welfare folks around here. All the things you have to do. The government was very, very clear about that. And we've all been on the receiving end of those approaches in the past. They don't work. And what I'm really taking away from what you're all saying is that how we do what we do is as important as what we do. And that was a key ingredient of the curriculum that we hope to lift up.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, and it's so important to have these comments because, in looking at this program, David Barnes, one of the things we're really trying to do is to get the government to fund this. And, all of us have been part of programs, Avanthi, over the years that, are just kind of meeting the government's expectations and don't really impact the fields. And this is one of the programs. That's why I became involved, because it changes how people govern. And it certainly has a major impact on how leaders within the organization will govern as well. So this kind of information, I think, will be very helpful to us when we are meeting with the ministries.
Thank you so much.
So can I jump in on that comment of where you're going with this program? What is your feeling about this particular government and their value in independent board of directors?
My sense is that there's a lot of openness to this type of conversation, and we've had now several meetings with the ministry. This is MCCSS, and it's going to broaden to health to begin with. And at least at the staff level, I think there's real commitment to going deeper into how do we transform a system that's pretty entrenched over the 100 years or so that we've had organizational structures and models. And I think that there is, my optimism is overshadowing other things, but I think that there's an interest in how do we strengthen board capacity to reflect the diversity of our communities and support leading organizations in a transformational process that's going to require some pretty intensive leadership. That's what it's going to start with the board. That's going to have to be where organizations have to focus. So that's just my take. I don't know if Bruce or David or Hugh have any other comments about the current environment that we're in.
No, I would agree with you, David. I think the time has come, and I think even the government is recognizing that a lot of their board programs and interventions over the years just haven't worked. And I think there's more of an openness now to a different approach to doing things, a more human approach to doing things. So I think the time is right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and just going back to, I think, a comment that you made, Kathy, around the collaboration issue. I mean, the government's been huge on promoting such, but the beauty of this curriculum is that it actually brings people together in a different kind of way within a community, and a diversity of board representation enriches that. I think that's a huge issue and a selling point with the government.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that they're kind of coming into their own to some extent around understanding this notion around collaboration. And, back in the day, 10 years ago, whatever, when we did our last amalgamation,
Yeah.
it was a letter from the government saying you need to do this, but, to the board and the executive director, but no tools, to not even how to engage the board. We had to figure that out ourselves, what we were going to do to bring 3 boards together, 3 legacy boards together, let alone, 21 programs and services stretching this huge area. And I'm reflecting as well on these other boards that I sit on. And I think that I'm seeing a shift and a change in who governors, board members are. I think there's a true commitment to lifelong learning. They're not all us retirees kind of thing. They're people who have passion and interest and heart and desire, to continue this slog at, making communities better for children and families, whether it's from a mental health perspective or from a disabilities perspective. And in so doing that, I think boards generally are adults who are open to continuing to learn, and they want that. They crave that because they do truly want to do the best that they can. And to me, that's the difference with this program over all the other governance training that I've taken, which has been, leading in best practice in governance, terms and bylaws and letters patent and the whole 9 yards. This challenges us to really think about who we are in the midst of this, if you will, social experiment of being a board, because we are expected to work as one. We come at it with a diversity of thought, but at the end of the day, we make a decision and we all agree with it. And if it fundamentally challenges our values and ethics of who we are as a person, we have a decision to make. We either need to step down from that board, or we need to get on with the rest of the group, and we need to see this decision through and put the shovel in the ground and build the new agency or whatever it might be. So I think it's interesting to see, I'm seeing that shift over probably 20 years of sitting on boards for myself when I was employed and then since being retired.
Thank you. If I could share just sort of the vision that I think Bruce and David and Hugh have talked about at the very beginning, that when we started to conceptualize this, we did not want governance 101. Somewhere in the back of our minds, we had this notion that we had to be more holistic, we had to be more human. And it's funny because now we're working on a whole movement around emotional centered care. How do you show up not only to support those that you serve in an emotional human way, but you treat each other that way. So one of the very first things that we talked about when we started to create this program was, how do we bring diversity onto boards? How do we attract and recruit and train folks that want to be on these boards to understand their role that they're taking on, just much like what you said around that leadership piece? And how do we get people who go through that work? And if they go through the work, they're going to really contribute to the board. And That's where the government is at. This is goes back to your comment, Avanthi, about the transformation agenda that the government has talked about now for a long time. How do governors represent not only the organization that they are a governor for, but their community? You know, if you sit on a child welfare board, you also represent the children in that community and how you're offering service to those children, or the adults, or the mental health issues or addictions. And so I think, Kathy, you made the point at the very beginning. One of our ideal scenarios would be the cohorts would be treated as a board, but they would come from different sectors, so that they learn from each other. They learn about how powerful that can be, rather than just folks that have chose to be on one particular board. So I just wanted to frame out those things around recruitment, bringing on diversity, and finding people who truly want to show up as leaders on boards, not just somebody who puts up their hand when they're told to vote on something that they have to vote on. But please, any other I know that our time is almost up, but I wanted to, any other reflections that you have? And I purposely didn't go into the other questions because I think we needed to have this conversation first, and then we could have more conversations later if necessary. But any final reflections or thoughts that people have?
I just wanted to add something for consideration within the course, and I think it touched upon this, but maybe something possibly a little more focused was the idea of systems thinking, and that whole movement, I think, is so essential in today's day and age. I mean, it's a growing, I think, necessity, and we really got to get our minds into that kind of framework, and that might help engage other boards, cross-sectoral kind of connections, if that could be built in.
I love that comment, because that's exactly what the intent was. Bruce or David or Hugh, do you want to add?
I really like that. And, I just wanted to thank everybody again. You so appreciate the time you spent participating and also reflecting upon that. And I also wanted to thank you, David Burns, because, this wouldn't have happened without your leadership. You pulled us together in the first place. So
For sure. For sure. That's great.
Thank you. I think, we all come from the sector, like Kathy said earlier on, that we're passionate about the work that we've done for 30, 40, maybe 50 years, some of us. And like you said, Sherwin, we didn't really know what was driving us until we started to unpackage it and show up differently. And I think that we are so invested in making sure that we can show up and lead and build capacity where we know it has to be. And sometimes it's easier for all of us when we're slightly outside the system. Not Joelvis and a few others aren't, but most of us are outside the system. But we reflect on what we've learned over all those years. So thank you. Any other?
Go ahead. Thanking you, David, for your leadership of this program. I think it's a groundbreaking program, and I think it's very exciting. And I think the excitement is where it really touches people very deeply. And it's when the government talks about transformation, the transformation is built into this program, and it's a transformation of human lives, beginning with the leadership and moving on to the community. And I think this is what this program has the potential to do and will do. So, David, thank you for your vision at the beginning and for leading us. This is tremendous.
Thank you very much for those kind words. And I think, I think the government, or certainly the ministries that we've had some conversations with, are very open to learning more. And one of the things I think that we were left with a message was that this needs to be something that the field advocates for, versus the government saying, you shall take this program to get on board. So they want this to be really, as we intended it to be, from the bottom up. Like, how do we build like a grassroots movement that then government will see that they have a significant role to play in supporting what what organizations want. And so this is why your contributions today are so incredibly helpful, because we know it's there, but we got to articulate, we got to elevate those voices. So government will get the message that this is coming from the field, from the sectors, from the professionals that want to create something different going forward. So thank you so much. It's been incredibly helpful, and we'll keep everybody informed. And if there's future conversations that we need to have, we'll be sending a little bit of an email to see what we can do. But thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. Great to meet everyone. Thanks, David.
All right. Nice to see
Thank
everyone.
you. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.